the eye in the front of it.
That's a slower sinking.
It's a slower sinking.
Right. Once they move the lead, the line, for the eye, the further it is, the slower it sinks. So that's my little tidbit for today.
Anybody else got any secrets they want to share, or where they're fishing at, or what they're using? Well, let's go fishing then, hell. All right, folks, it's around 1 o'clock, and we're breaking up, but they're still over here talking fishing. Drawing on maps. Chaz is still here. I hope he knows his two daughters. Chaz, you know your daughters are going somewhere, huh?
It takes a major hit that week before, and that's April, May, June, the whole spawning deal. So like, if you want to take a week off of work, I would say the week before April's full moon is the best week of the year. That, especially here.
That's the same thing.
I mean, after's okay,
last,
but before
last full moon of March was when we
that's
made
when
sure
they
we
do
were
the
on
beds.
Lake Fork.
That's the bed thing,
catching
right?
big bass.
With the bass, you wanted to do it before they started fanning the bed.
Yeah. That's
So they're getting all their energy to start fanning.
To go in the beds, yeah.
The spawn, and the reason they bite like crazy at this time, November and December, they're trying to gain energy for whenever this exactly. So they're feeding way more than they normally do in a year, you know.
Because that's surprising, 48 degrees in Mystico.
Mystico's been known for like being really good on that cold water like that. And I'm telling you, it's got to be the sun hitting them rocks and warming that. It's probably the warmest water in the estuary.
That's why the wall gets good. That
Yeah, that's
concrete
all
wall.
right.
Because it gets sun all day. Because the sun's down here and the wall's here, so it comes up over here. That south side of that wall gets sun all day.
Right.
When it's sunny.
My friends that do what y'all been doing religiously, they love it when the weather's horrible because nobody's out there.
Right.
That's so important.
That was
is
Sunday.
so important.
And yesterday, there was a hell of a lot.
So
more people
so
out
y'all
there.
struggled yesterday, or
No, yesterday was better. It was Wednesday then.
Wednesday.
I mean, y'all gotta find you doing way better when it's calmer out there for people, right?
Of course.
It's way like the boat pressure is so much more important than lunar tables and tides and all of that. If those fish hadn't been bugged in 2 days, they're gonna bite. If they've been getting beat to death 4 days in a row, they're gonna slow down. You'll see it after every front. The front comes through, the first pretty day they eat up. And then you get 4 or 5 days of beautiful weather. Every day there's twice as many boats. So you got 10 boats, turns into 20, turns into 40, turns into 80, and then there goes your bite. And then another front comes through, and the fish get to relax for 3 days, and you get back out there, and there they go again. It's the same thing on the bridge in November. You know, when we get like 6 days in a row of slick, calm, beautiful, that 5th and 6th day is pretty hard because they've been totally terrorized for 6 days straight.
Well, Barrett, you were even saying that you think that from the rocks, looking for the ledges, that you know when they're pressured like that, maybe back down on the ledges.
Well, they're chasing up. All they're doing is they're coming up those rocks. They're chasing bait up there. Then they go back and forth, make sure they got all the bait. Then they go back down. Then they pushing more bait up, but the bait's in there. And they're not at this time of year. They're not hanging out in 6, 7 feet of water.
We did see the loon, Stanley.
Do what?
Was a loon.
And one's a kid.
Yep, but the loons are there, the bait's there.
10 years ago, nobody even threw jerk baits down them rocks. That was all started by this one group of guys like y'all's age that are from that New Orleans area, and they were.
Say old farts. It's
Well, my dad's buddy over, he fishes the jetties and the rocks all along the Gulf Coast and in Grand Lake, Calcasieu Lake. And when he's running down looking at the rocks and stuff, he looks for birds, but he'll look for the egrets, the blue herons and stuff. He said if they're lined up along those rocks, if you got a bunch of herons in that area, that means there's bait. They're just waiting for that bait to be pushed up, and they're going to get it when the fish push the bait in. And he that's what he looks for. You know, he taught my dad that, because my dad said, man, we can fishing on the rocks. He said, where the birds are. And you find
that thing's like 50 miles long.
Yeah.
When you got something that long and it's the same the whole way, you got to look for things like that to figure out what is a productive section, you know. It's huge with the balloons.
I got lucky with the jerk baits. We were talking to a guy at the dock, and he said they were catching them on a green bait. It's green. It was a green hornet, but he
Yeah.
didn't know what it was called.
Yeah.
So I went to the academy and I'm looking through and they didn't have any green hornets that day, but I bought a green jerkbait. I said, I don't know, it's green, it's a nice color, it looks good to me. Then I went out there and caught fish with it. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was just jerking it around. It was
Yeah.
a jerk. I'd never heard of a jerk. I didn't even know that the rapalas that I fished with for years were jerkbaits.
Yeah.
They were topwater baits for me.
Right.
But,
That's the one lure I've seen in my life where when they're on that jerkbait bite, you can get outfished 50 to nothing. You throw a 1/4 ounce jig head, all of that, they don't want it. It's crazy, man.
Well,
They do the same thing here.
A lot of times, if 3 of us sat in the boat, 2 of us use jerk baits and one guy's using the jig heads, a lot of times he will outfish you numbers, but he ain't catching
He ain't
none of the
catching
big
the
ones.
big, yeah.
He's catching all 13s and 14s, and
Y'all
you're
get that
catching
big
20s.
one,
Well, that's what we saw yesterday too, is that up against the rocks, we caught the big girls, and then
And the way out was just school
out,
trout.
just school trout.
Like that day y'all were in Lakeshore and I was way up on the bank, looked like I was bass fishing. If you weren't throwing a jerkbait, you weren't catching a fish. Now granted, they were dinkers, but that's, in September, October, that's what they, even though the canal's 20 foot, that's that's all they want's that jerkbait. But over there in the Mississippi, it's like the winter time when they do it, you know?
You think it's because of what the bait is at that time?
I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that they're looking up or suspended or something like that. Maybe the way they're looking, I don't know.
Plus you're dead sticking, it's not moving. You pop it and it sits. And they go, oh, that's an easy meal. Boom.
Like when Lakeshore, you'd have that hard grass line right up on the shore, and I'm kind of throwing it in that, and I'm just ripping it out of there. And right when I come out, it's in like 10 foot of water, but I think those fish are just looking up at the grass or something.
Yeah.
Because if you throw a jig head, you're just flying past them, you know? The kid, the one that really fishes a lot of jerk baits and stuff, his name's Louis Perrette, and he showed me a lot of that. What our big jerkbait time of year over here is when they're on the grass, you know, like the Bayou Lacombe stuff, Goose Point, and jerkbaits are deadly out there whenever Goose Point had the grass flats. Which y'all lost all of that.
That's what I got. Those guys were throwing those little mirror lures that look like
Mirror
fogies.
nets. Yeah, but
Look like
yeah.
about like a fogey. They throw it in the grass, rip it out of the grass, and that fish would hit it when it comes out of the grass. I said that's how we used to bass fish up in Caddo Lake. It was all grass. You throw a rattle trap or whatever up in there, and you rip it out of that grass, and then just when you pop it out and let it sit, they'll hammer.
That's the one thing, is that, certainly letting it sit a long time
Yeah.
makes a difference.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Sometimes you're not patient enough to do that.
Yeah, if you think you're fishing slow enough,
That's what I told that guy, that little kid, I was in Bayou Lacombe, and I'm catching them one after the other. This other little kid, he's over there, he's throwing it, reeling. I said, hey, fish real slow. And he's like, what? I said, fish it slow. I said, and if you think you're going too slow, slow down. And I mean, his second cast, he did, boom. And he's like, smiling ear to ear. I was like, that's what it's about, getting those kids, teaching them how to do it.
that's what Stanley's all about.
That corky, that stuff ought to be deadly on them rocks.
Yeah,
It's the
I
same
corky
principle.
should be.
I caught one on the Fat Boy.
Yeah, but the fat boy doesn't sink, man. Mine doesn't.
Yeah, you need to find whichever one sinks.
Yeah,
They gotta be.
they got it.
All I know is them guys that are experts at that in Texas,
Oh, we
there's an
slam.
art to that.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
all of these tricks y'all got, they're all how you bend that
Yeah,
freaking
that's like the
thing.
guy said.
Well, he
There's
said
bend that hook
magic to
down.
that.
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah.
bend it.
You gotta
Yeah.
bend it down,
So it dies.
yeah.
And when it, boom, man, my dad and them, that's all they threw in the
Yeah,
winter on the
copper
flats.
huge on that, yeah.
I mean, the water can be chocolate. You throw that thing out there and you still catching them. I mean, we would fish at the end by the jetties were here, and it was deep on that side. We'd fish on the back side of the rocks on the flat, and it would be muddy.
Yeah.
I'm like, Dad, we're gonna catch them. He said, you just throw that thing out there and work it. Man, I mean, they're there. You're catching trout like this.
Yeah.
It was so much fun fishing in Texas. They had some big old fish.
You can actually catch, when the water's right, a lot of nice fish, jerkbait fishing on that flat, across from the
Yeah,
rocks.
that's right.
I used to fish there more than the rocks, mostly because there'd be so many damn people
That's
on the
right.
rocks.
Yeah, that's
right.
And I could work that flat,
Is that
and I'd be the
cold
only,
weather? Two or?
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
big
asking
one.
that, just
I'm
like you
Sure, a
said.
day like yesterday would have been fine.
I
You
caught
get
my
that sun up over
PB
your
trout.
head.
Yeah, I think it was that sun heating up
Yeah.
that darker water there. And my brother and I, in December, we did that, going across those flats, southeast wind,
Yeah.
across the flats with the jerk.
Well, that shallow water, if
get
that
that
sun's
good
out, the
grass
shallow
growing
water's
at
gonna
the
be
bottom.
coldest in the morning, but in the mid-morning, it's gonna heat up if the sun's up.
You know where that
The
little
shallowest
sunken
water's
boat
gonna heat up
is?
quick.
On
Yeah,
the flat?
yeah.
PB trout, right there, I was about maybe 20 feet out in front, 3.5 feet of water at the low. I thought I had red. I stuck that thing, it about jerked the pole out of my hand, and it was screaming drag, so I figured it's gotta be a red, right? It gets around the back of the boat, my buddy starts screaming and hollering, I said, what's that? Trout, man, that ain't no red, that's a trout, 28 inches.
Yeah.
Wow, that is a PB.
Well, folks, I promised y'all some fish stories, so we're having a good group right now. It's a little group session.
They're growing by the minute.
I think everybody,
Nobody wants to hear
I
about
think,
the days when you didn't.
everybody got to roll their pant sleeves up because the shit's getting high here.
I told Rudy his fish was probably 6 pounds before you know it.
Yeah.
No, I never weighed that 28 inches, I just let it go. 5 feet deep. And then you have the other areas just a little further down, and the same, it's going straight down the rocks. And wait, now it's 12 feet deep. And you're the same distance from the rocks. And some days they're in that 12 feet. Not there, they're closer, but they're out there. And other days, they're hitting it at the boat
Yeah.
out there.
That's where we're finding. We're finding closer, where the deep water is closest to the rocks.
That's the best.
That's
found-
Well, in general that is, but sometimes they're up in that
Yeah.
shallow.
Nobody runs towards Violet just to get away from the people, really.
We
huh?
didn't.
Did you catch some?
We ain't found them yet, but we're looking.
I mean, I know, I used to have friends that would liked it down there. Now granted, he might fish all day for 20 when he could have caught 40 up here,
Right.
but he just hated the people.
Right.
But maybe the wall damming it does really benefit it, I don't, obviously that helps. That's gonna put more fish.
Right.
Well, that's why I stayed with that. Once I learned how to do it, watched a lot of videos on, because I know what the hell a jerkbait was.
Yeah.
I didn't know, I said jerk it, and nobody said, and pause.
And which one do you buy? Does it sink fast enough? Does it need to
But
There's
once I
so many
learned
different ones.
and started
Does it
catching it,
sink, does it suspend, or does it
for
float?
me, it was a lot more fun. I would go out, the guys out in the middle, they were getting their 25 fish.
Yeah,
And very seldom anything over 14 inches.
right.
I was only catching a dozen fish, but I wasn't catching anything under 18.
That's the one. No, it's a scope stick.
Follower?
That's the Bill
Bill
Lewis
Lewis.
scope stick.
Oh, that's the
And
one.
that's the one that was
That
working
everybody,
yesterday.
that's the most popular one, right?
Yeah, that's the one that was working yesterday.
That's the one that caught the big one.
Although we did catch
Yeah,
a pink one.
that does about 7 feet, doesn't it?
Yeah, 6.
Did it go 5 to
6
7?
Yeah, 6 feet.
Yeah,
Well, and this one, it sinks slower.
it does sink.
It sinks slower.
So you can buy a piece of lead tape and put on it and make it sink faster if you need it to.
I don't think we need to, that's great, it's like,
I like that for a rock. It doesn't sink fast enough to where you get hung up,
Yeah.
if you let it sit,
More bass fishing, everybody's fishing more and more like bass fishing.
That's,
You can throw a crankbait out there too, with a lid.
well, at Marshman Massillon did that.
Yeah,
Not
I saw
more,
that, yeah.
I mean,
He was killing them on that bait that he was talking about,
Yeah.
right? It almost looked like that exact color,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Well, I tried one of those like it, when we first
And
went
what
on
was that,
Sunday.
purplish?
I couldn't
purplish
catch
tip?
anything, and then he started catching them all, I said, oh, I gotta change.
Yeah.
Good.
Now I was
But
telling
it was
you
the
about-
electric chicken.
Well, I got earlier, I said, I fished with that bait, caught a lot of fish with it years ago. That and that red and white, and just suddenly, you got the new lure comes out, and I quit
Everybody
using it.
moves on.
That's
Like
it.
the old ones don't work anymore.
That's it, yeah.
They worked just
Only caught a million fish
Yeah,
back then.
yeah, yeah.
And this fish got so much more sophisticated.